Could we be reading these headlines right? Could Apple potentially be purchasing ESPN? And if they do, it could totally change the game on how we view our college athletics. We're going to talk about it with a special guest right after this word from our sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode is brought to you by Dutch Miller Automotive, where friends and family pricing means you get the best deal right up front on any new or pre-loved vehicle in stock every time. With brands like Chevrolet, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, GMC, Buick, and Subaru, the Dutch Miller Automotive family is always growing and ready to put you in the car or truck you've been searching for. Check out our inventory across West Virginia at DutchMillerAuto.com or come in today to the home of friends and family pricing, only at a Dutch Miller Automotive store near you. What is up, college football fans, Big 12 fans, and fellow members of Mountaineer Nation? Welcome in to another edition of Couz's Corner. Belly yourself up to the bar and let me pour you out a shot of top-shelf college football content. On tap in today's episode, we are talking about the news and reports out there that Apple could potentially purchase ESPN. And in order to talk about this, I wanted to bring on somebody who knew the industry much better than I. I brought on former industry producer, current Forbes columnist, Mr. Jim Williams. How you doing, Jim?
I'm fine. How you doing, Couz?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Doing well. I really appreciate you giving us your time today.
Always a pleasure.
For those of you, go check out Jim. You want to interact with him, go check him out on X, formerly known as Twitter, at JW Media DC. Jim writes columns for Forbes Magazine. He's worked in the industry for ESPN and several other networks. You've seen him as a guest, I'm sure, a lot on 365 Sports, John Kurtz, and some other shows. And he's been a guest here before as well. So, welcome back.
It's always a pleasure.
Absolutely.
All my friends in West Virginia.
Yes, sir. Always appreciate your input, Jim, and love the stuff you put out on Twitter, X, whatever we want to call it these days.
Yep. Yeah, well, I'm not sure what to call it these days.
I don't know. I've been calling it Twitter for so long, it's hard to call it anything else.
Right. Yeah.
But I don't want Elon to sue me, so I'm trying to get it right.
Or block us.
Yeah, right. Let's dive in real quick, Jim. I'm sure you've seen the story. As a matter of fact, I think you've even tweeted about it some, about the Apple ESPN thing. Number one, how much weight do you think this has? Do you think this is a real possibility?
Well, I'll give you a little background on that. It turns out that the story was written by Front Office Sports, which is just like Sports Business Journal. I mean, they're industry publications. It's an article written by a friend of mine, Mike McCarthy, and Mike was basically polling a group of Wall Street executives, who put together major deals as to who would be a good potential, purchaser or partner with ESPN, and the majority of those Wall Street people told Mike that they thought that that Apple would be the logical choice, and I don't I don't see when Bob Iger at Disney was talking about looking for strategic partners or maybe selling ABC or any of that. It wasn't necessarily that they were going to sell it, but they were looking for partners. So I don't think that Apple would purchase necessarily ESPN. They could certainly become an investor in ESPN and become in that form what in essence would be a partnership whereby they would distribute the content on Apple TV Plus, and it would be produced by ESPN, and then they would share profit, and at the same time they would probably go together in investing in in content. So that would be the NBA, Major League Baseball, etc. So I think that what started off as just a question from Mike McCarthy that morphed into a story that then morphed into a series of people speculating that ESPN was going to be purchased by Apple.
Gotcha. Okay. And I know the deal based on an article I read, I think it was on Yahoo Sports or Yahoo Business, one of those articles,
Right.
said it would be like a $50 billion deal or something of that nature.
Well, that was again, that's a guesstimate, yeah, that it
Hmm.
would cost 50 billion to buy ESPN. And ESPN remains a cash cow for the Disney, the Disney group.
Hmm.
So it's not that they absolutely have to do anything, but I think where the the Apple, and it could all, and we shouldn't discard um, Amazon, Prime, and also Google YouTube, who jumped in and got the football Sunday ticket rights. Those three should be looked at
Hmm.
equally from that standpoint.
Right.
Is I think one of the things that we've all seen, right, is that uh, rights have gone up, and but the um, the amount of people who can bid for these rights basically has gone down, because one of the things that we found out is you have to be more prudent in spending. Cables penetration, which at one time was 100 million, is now about 74 million in the next 5 or 10 years. You know, Probably go down a bit to maybe, I think the bottom on that be in the high 50s, maybe 55, something like that. So the streaming and directing consumers is going to become a more um, it's going to become more of an accepted way to watch our. We already watch entertainment content that way, and now it's beginning to get a lot more into the sports element aspect of it.
Right.
So I think the consolidation really is where the key to this is, in partnering in things. So perhaps Apple and ESPN would become partners. So that's just one of the many possible offshoots here. But I honestly don't think that at the moment that ESPN is for sale, and
Hmm.
B, that Apple and ESPN are necessarily, you know, they may not even be the right mix. So we'll have to
Right.
see how that plays out.
Right. Well, we've heard ESPN talk about how they want to, at some point, move all their sports over to dir- all direct to consumer, right? We've heard them talk about that.
Well, 2025 is when Jimmy Pitero is going to do that.
Yeah.
And he's the president of ESPN. So my guess is, and this is purely what this is a guess, they're not leaving linear television. I mean, they're not leaving the cable space. They're just
Hmm.
simply making, right now, they don't make everything available on ESPN Plus.
Right.
Um, but what they're going to do is basically make it available. Now that if you watch
Okay.
sports on CBS, right, or NBC, they've been very openly airing college football and basketball and NBA and NFL on their platform. So if you want to watch Sunday afternoon football, you can watch it on Paramount Plus from CBS.
Right.
If you want to watch the Sunday night football game, you can watch it on Peacock. So yeah, they have already done that, and ESPN doesn't do that yet.
Right.
ESPN doesn't make Monday Night Football available on ESPN Plus.
Right.
So that's what I mean by you know, uh, by splitting it, so that you'll have the opportunity to either stream it on, ESPN Plus, or you'll have the option to subscribe it. How you get your, if you're still going to be a cable subscriber, you'll still have access to it. It's just that they will also offer it in a streaming standpoint.
And that makes sense. And I'm glad you clarified that, because when I first heard that, I'm thinking, okay, what does that mean for all these television deals that they've made with these conferences or these professional leagues or whoever?
Mm-hmm.
If you all of a sudden put everything on streaming, that, I mean, to me, those conferences or these sports leagues wouldn't be happy about that, right? I mean, they would be probably not. I mean, that's one of the reasons the Pac-12 didn't sign a deal with Apple, because they didn't want it to all be streaming. So,
Well,
I,
actually, yeah. I mean, I, I I honestly don't believe that. I think that they were looking for an excuse
I got you.
to get out of it, and
Okay.
and that was just one of them. And by the way, for the record, Apple did not say that they wanted 100%, that they would not work with a linear partner.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so I mean, there was that deal was that deal was dead before it ever got started, and it had nothing to do with Apple. It had
Okay.
everything to do with this dramatic ending, um, where everybody suddenly didn't understand what was going on when it had that deal. By the way, that Apple deal that had been floating around there since March.
Right.
So I don't understand how they didn't know about it. Because hell, if I knew about it, then there's no reason for them not to know.
Right. 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 Well, and I mean, we heard rumblings about it. I mean, I think you probably tweeted about it before. Other
Yeah,
people did too.
I wrote
And
an entire column about it.
right. Right. Yeah,
So,
you did actually. And I mean, and that we remember they had another deal too that apparently had been proposed at one time that
mhm,
included uh, several different networks, linear networks, and
yeah,
Amazon. And that deal, I think, died when Colorado decided to leave. Is my understanding. Now, I could be misinterpreting that, but that's
I
how I
yeah.
interpreted it.
Basically, it was just that whole thing, and we don't want to get into that because we'd be here for 3 or 4 months
Right. Right.
trying to explain that. But yeah, the autopsy on that one is going to be interesting. But at the end of the day, um, I don't think that networks are as afraid of streaming as um, as college conferences and in college not professors, presidents.
ADs.
Yeah, I think that if you look at it, um, we're coming up on the NFL season, and Amazon's already sold out of their Thursday night football content. They've
Hmm.
sold every advertisement they can. They're going to have you know, they paid an extra $75 million for the Black Friday game, um, which, because as you all remember, there's 3 games on Thanksgiving Day, and Fox has one, and CBS has one, and now NBC has the nightcap,
Hmm.
and so the Thursday night game that would have gone to Amazon now becomes a Friday game, which is going to be a Black Friday game for the next 11 years. Well, 10 years, I
Wow.
guess, that situation. But no, I mean, look, here's the thing too on that part of it. Um, the first things out of people can't are constantly looking at trying to equate TV ratings with streaming, and that's apples and oranges, Couz. It
Okay.
doesn't work that way. And just if you don't mind, let me just real quick explanation. We looked
Absolutely.
at we looked at the book, and all that everybody was saying was, well, it was down 44%. The ratings were down 44% off of Thursday night football, back in, the year before.
Hmm.
So in 2020, in 2021, you know, it was on Fox. And then in 2020, two, it became, part of part of streaming on Amazon. If you think about that, right? Fox is free over the air television. You only lost a portion of your audience that literally had to learn where to find the for Thursday night football, found it, and when you break into you go to the details, right?
Hmm.
The details were these 3 things. One, for the first time in history, the NFL ratings showed that the mean, you know, average age of the person watching Thursday night football on Prime was under 50. That had never happened before. It
Okay.
was 47 was the number. For the first time in history of the NFL and in ratings, they saw a double digit jump in the demo of 18 to 34. And that was an 18% jump.
Hmm.
And they saw a 60% jump in the amount of time that people streamed it. So in other words, they it's they streamed an extra 20 minutes. 60% of those who viewed the show watched it for 20 minutes longer. So A, you've got a younger demo. B, you're growing a younger demo. And C, you got people who stay with it longer. And that was just in year one of an 11-year deal.
Right.
So that's why, I think that Adam Silver over at the NBA, Gary Bettman at the NHL, um, Fred Manfred at or Rob Manfred, I'm sorry, at Major League Baseball, are less upset and concerned. I mean, because they know they're going to get linear, but they're
Hmm.
not. They're not as worried about streaming as some of these college presidents and ADs,
Right.
who, by
Makes
the way,
sense.
are on who by the way are already on ESPN Plus. So I'm
Right.
not quite sure how how
Yeah.
that works, but okay, fine. You're afraid of streaming, but you're already on it. Okay,
Yeah, my gut feeling here, and this is just
yeah,
total speculation based on the articles I've read, is that the coaches and the ADs jumped up and down about it so much, and the presidents were listening to them. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah, I do.
they were scared to death of losing exposure because of recruiting purposes. I think
And,
that was their biggest fear.
right. No, and you're right. And I would have told the coach, if you can't, I'm going to do what's in best interest of business of my institution. If you can't
Hmm.
recruit a kid, that's not my fault.
Right. Yeah.
So, and by the way, when was the last time Arizona was a power? I mean, I don't understand where Arizona is a power in basketball. Maybe, well, I don't want to get you in trouble or
Well,
you in trouble, but that,
no, that's fine. No, I mean we're on here to speak our opinion. I mean that's what
right.
this is all about. I don't know that they're a power anymore, but I think they just have that brand that's been
No, I
with them
appreciate
since
they're a blue
since
blood.
since the
Yeah,
Ludo. Yeah, they're a blue
yeah,
blood brand in
right,
basketball. The Lute Olson days really put them on the map, and they've
right,
continued to make the tournament and make some runs in
right.
the tournament here and there.
Mm.
They're just not, they haven't made a Final Four in a while, I don't believe. But
Not for a long time.
but yeah, but I think it's just a brand thing more than anything. Just like in college football, when you talk about
Yeah,
some of these brands, Nebraska. I mean, everybody still considers Nebraska a big brand, but yet they haven't won anything in over a
what's
decade.
it? What was it? Tom.
Tom Osborne.
Yeah, last time Tom Osborne was coach.
Maybe it's been 2 decades. I don't even know at this point,
Yeah,
but
been a
uh,
minute. Yeah,
it's been a while. But nobody's. But I still look at Nebraska as a big brand. I mean, Matt Rule wanted
yeah,
to go coach
sure.
there, so
Yeah,
and he wasn't going to go just anywhere, right? He wanted
no,
a
for
job
sure.
that where he could win. So,
Yeah,
but anyway, so I think that's. But you're right, and we kept hearing in the media, some media circles, that
mhm.
they're not going to let coaches and ads make this decision. Well, I think they just did.
They maybe, yeah, maybe they did. And but see, here's the thing. The that and it has nothing to do with what we need to see now is we need to see presidents and administrators who have a better understanding of how you know media works in general.
Hmm.
And I think that becomes very important for the future because those of us who are sports fans, the direct to consumer model is coming. Okay,
Right.
it's whether we like it, don't like it, whatever. It's coming, and whether it's ESPN and Apple together, or it's Amazon and Fox or whomever puts together these packages, it's coming this way. And what we've seen in the death of the regional sports networks, um, is that now baseball wants their rights back. We're going to see the Clippers, the um, Utah Jazz, the Phoenix Suns. They're taking back their own rights, and they're putting together a direct to consumer package where you're going to be able to buy and watch your favorite teams, locally, rather than just have to have cable to get the regional sports network. You're
Right.
going to be able to buy it yourself and not have to worry about you know the cable sports network. So whether this is a money making operation or not, we're certainly going to soon find it out because the NBA clearly is going that way on a local basis, as is the NHL, and obviously what we had happen this year is the Padres and the Diamondbacks were taken over by Major League Baseball to produce those games because of the regional cable networks, reneging on those deals. Now, the one thing they're not going to do is they're not going to make the billions of dollars, in the long run that they made in the
Hmm.
past, because it's just not there. But it's just going to change the way we watch things in the future, and whether that's a bad thing or a good thing, I guess depends on how you like to consume what it is that you enjoy, whether it's I know that a lot of people watch movies on Netflix or
Hmm.
Max or one of those things.
Right.
You're going to have to get used to watching sports you know, in that same vein.
Hey, the video quality is usually great. Honestly, it's
Yeah,
the broadcasting sometimes is, but they don't usually have their top tier broadcasters or their most experienced
sure.
broadcasters on but they will in the future, right? At
Well,
some
yeah, I mean,
point,
if you look
they
at
will
what,
have their
mhm,
top tier, upper
mhm,
level, most experienced, however you want to word it. They will
mhm,
have those people on those DTC broadcasts at some
right.
point.
Well, I mean, obviously, I've watched the NFL and CBS on Paramount,
Right.
and I watch out, Mike Tirico and the gang on Sunday Night Football, and of course Alan and Kirk you know,
Thursday
on
night.
Thursday Night Football. Thank you. I
Hmm.
forgot what day we're on here. Okay, but yeah, I mean, look, it's a different way of watching things,
Yeah.
and you know, but as far as what we started here with ESPN and Apple, that was that's really just the beginning of the dance of there's going to be consolidation, and I think that's a fair
Yeah.
estimate. But who's going to pair up with who, we don't know yet. But
Yeah.
hopefully it'll be people who will understand that you know all of us have a certain amount of money that we're going to spend on this, and how much of that are we going to dictate or I'm sorry, dedicate to watching our favorite teams. I think is where it's gonna balance out.
Right.
So do I really want to watch, or pay for something I'm not really gonna watch?
Right. I got a couple more questions, Jim. Before we
Sure.
do that, I want to let you tell folks about your own YouTube channel.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
yeah,
it's
if you don't
it's
mind.
no, not at all. Thanks a lot. We do um half hour show, 40 minutes, half hour, where I basically just answer questions. It's called Stream On, and you can see the link in my I tweet it out every day, at 10 a.m.
Hmm.
Eastern time. And if you have questions, we bring them on and we answer questions. And we're in our second week of that now. I've been doing Stream On the podcast for now. This is my fourth year doing that, but
Okay.
we decided to take it video wise and do it every day. And we have a very nice group of fans who come in and ask questions. We try to answer as much of it as we can. If we can't, we eventually get them the answer.
Right.
Um, if there's an answer that can be had,
Right.
we definitely do it. But no, it's a lot of fun, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to tell people about it.
Not a problem, and I'll be sure to leave the link as well to the show in my or to the channel in my description box as well,
Okay, thanks.
in the show
Appreciate it.
notes. So yeah, no problem. Um, but a couple more questions. Number one,
Sure.
I was watching a YouTube show not long ago, or listening to a YouTube show not long ago
Hmm.
that talked about, and I didn't know how far fetched. It sounded a little bit far fetched to me, and I want to get your thoughts. So I'm
Okay.
not going to name names because I'm not here to bash anybody, but
Right.
they talked about. They were a guest on Mark Rogers' Voice of College Football. I'll just leave it at that. I do want to
Okay.
plug his show. Um, but they talked about how the Big Ten is going to have a huge advantage, and I'm paraphrasing, but the Big Ten is going to have a huge advantage over the SEC going forward because they're on Fox, CBS, and NBC, and because of ESPN's financial issues or Disney's financial issues, I guess that that does not bode well for the SEC because they have basically put all their eggs in one basket with ESPN. Do you buy that at all?
No.
Okay.
not until the Big Ten starts winning championships.
Right. So you think ESPN is going to be fine?
They are. I mean, I couldn't believe, all of the stuff that, I mean, ESPN's still making money. Okay. And we're talking billions of dollars of money,
Hmm.
not just, not just money. What, you know, what they're losing, are they getting as much money as they can? No. So what does this mean? What this means is ESPN got, kind of fat, dumb, and happy, as the old
Hmm.
saying goes, right?
Right.
And they started putting on a ton of entertainment, type programming and side programming that got away from their core audience. And the core audience is, we just want to watch games, okay? And when I started working for ESPN, I mean, I would do a basketball game, and I swear to God, Couz, the basketball game would, I could go for a month and still be watching the same basketball game I did, a month ago.
Yeah.
So, it just worked that way. And so I think that what happened is they hired so many employees and they also overpaid for a ton of content,
Yeah.
rights fees, so that they could get them, and not only get them, but make sure that nobody even came close. So what, that was at the height of it when they had 100 million subscribers, right?
Hmm.
Well, if you do the math, and we've said before that, what is it? It's right now 74 million. And if we go down in the next 5 years to even to 55 or so million,
Hmm.
you're still getting between $6 and $8 a subscriber. Okay. Doesn't
Right.
take long to do the math that's not a bad amount of money that you're bringing in every month.
Right.
So, so they are still very much a cash cow. Um, where I think that we talked about the, you know, finding a partner is so that you know, they can do what they do best and maybe have the partner distribute that content for them.
Gotcha.
So I think that's where the sweet spot is. And we've got Fox that doesn't even have a streaming partner yet. So, I would think that I would more likely think that someone like Apple or Amazon might look at pairing themselves up with Fox down the road.
Right.
Uh, because why go against them whenever they could? Because Fox and Apple right now are working together on
Hmm.
the MLS soccer. So,
Right.
there's no reason to not to believe that. So as I said before, Apple has shown an interest in working with other linear people. So it's not that. Um, so I think that we're going to see that consolidation. But yeah, I mean, it really the not to paraphrase Mark Twain, but the reports of the death of ESPN's greatly exaggerated.
Right. Okay.
And I think a lot of it has to do with people who want who want to see them,
Yeah.
you know, out,
Right.
out the way. But
Right.
it is what it is. And look, the Big Ten's always made more money than the SEC from a television standpoint. So
Yeah.
it's not like this is the first time that's happened.
Right.
But I never underestimate Greg Sankey.
Yeah. He's whether you like him or not.
Hmm.
He can be a little bit. I get a lot of people call him Greg Sanctimonious, and I sometimes he comes across that way.
Yeah.
But he does a great job for his conference, and you can't argue that.
No, and pretty much the SEC's always had one of those, types of guys who, have danced to their own drummer. But at the end of the day, I mean, they've stayed very true to their footprint. They haven't gone or attempted to go, you know, out of um, out of the South because they feel that, we're good. This is where
Yep.
we need to be. And so, yeah, I don't think that I don't think that the Big Ten's going to have any massive, run in that. And it just, if I may ask you a question, I mean,
Hmm.
I, I just, when these conferences leave and go into their different ways and chase the dollar, which I understand. I mean, it has to, you know, you have to, it's a business, you have to go for it. But I mean, it takes away the regionality of it. And I think that's where the SEC has made themselves, has at least stayed somewhat true um, to their footprint, which
Hmm.
is why their fans, are so tight with them.
Right.
It's made it easier for them to you can still go to games in the SEC and not have to get on a plane and fly to California.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, as a college football fan, uh, that's the one thing we're losing for sure is the regionality. I mean, as a West Virginia fan, I mean, we lost it over a decade ago, so I
Yeah.
totally understand it. But unfortunately, if you're not in the SEC, that's the world we live in, and I'm just curious how long the SEC will keep that mantra and keep that strategy. I mean, yes, Texas is not technically in the East, but it is in the South at least. So,
Well,
like you
they
said,
already
they've
had
they
Texas A&M,
right, right, and then
so
now Missouri's really the only outlier there, I guess.
yeah.
You could say Missouri's an outlier, but other than them,
Hmm.
everybody else, you're right, they've kept that same footprint. I wish every conference did the same, but unfortunately, that's not the world we're in. And it wouldn't surprise me if at some point we get back to that, especially in the non-revenue sports. I don't know that we'll ever see
Sure.
it again in football, but the non-revenue sports, especially in my opinion, need to get back to regionality.
Oh yeah. I mean, you don't want. I mean, you're making kids travel all over the country.
Yeah, it just doesn't make any sense.
No.
One last topic, Jim, and then
Sure.
I'll let you get back to your day.
Hmm.
We've got to talk about this Pac-4, AAC, Mountain West, ACE,
Hmm.
Stanford, Cal, ACC, whatever. Um, it looks like, and I mean, heck, it could change by the time I publish this video, but
Hmm.
it looks like Cal, Stanford aren't going to get the votes to get in the ACC, at least not yet. Do you think that changes? How do you see that playing out in your mind?
I think that this is one of those. I think they'll make it to the ACC. I don't know about. I assume SMU would be in there, but I don't. I'm not counting them right at
Hmm.
the moment because for some reason, there's gone radio silence on that over the last
Right.
48 hours. Um, I think this is more of a power play between FSU and Clemson, and to a lesser extent, North Carolina and North Carolina State.
Right.
To say, here we're bringing in, you tell us we can't have any more money, but we're here adding, new mouths to feed, so to speak.
Yeah.
Um, but I think given the fact that both SMU and Stanford are willing to take a very limited payout,
Hmm.
Cal can't do that. That Cal's got to have some, there's got to be money in the deal there because Cal
Yeah.
has to get that board of regents to approve it. That all being said, I don't think that there's going to be a PAC 2.0. I just don't see that happening because Stanford really, if Stanford wanted that they could have stayed right where they were and
Yeah.
not even picked up the phone and began the conversation with the ACC.
Makes sense.
So if that were, I mean, they could be sitting back there right now. And to be honest, if you think about it, Couz, right? If here would have been an opportunity for Stanford to put together a type of league that they really wanted to have, right?
Hmm.
But they showed no interest in that. And so that leads me to believe that if for some reason the ACC doesn't work out, maybe they're going to go independent, maybe, whatever. But they don't have a, they meaning the PAC 2.0, or for that matter, Stanford's going independent. They don't have a lot of time. I mean, 2024 is when it comes out. But
Hmm.
even though the NCAA gives you the 2 extra years to, to get back to 8, to become a true conference, and then you've got to really go to 10 and then maybe 12 or whatever. Um, it does, it's got to work that way. But Stanford is the bell cow for whatever PAC 2.0 there is, and if Stanford's
Yep.
not on board, then forget about it. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at the American and the Mountain. As a matter of fact, the Mountain West commissioner, Gloria Navarez, is going to be in Pullman tomorrow.
Ah,
And
interesting.
so I assume that she's not going there for vacation.
Yeah.
So my you
No
know
offense to Pullman, but
no, it's a wonderful place, but it definitely is gonna it's gonna the the nav system on her car is definitely gonna go crazy trying to get there, but it'll get her there.
yeah,
But that being said, Pullman, the Oregon State and Washington State are in a real pickle here because they didn't do any of this.
I know.
They didn't deserve it, and they're going to end up either in the American or the Mountain West. And I think that they've come to that realization pretty quick. And if they sit around and wait for Stanford, it might be 2036 before they're in a
Right.
conference. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, the irony. So yeah, and I imagine that Mike Oresco, um, who is a very smart and very good business person, is probably, you know, has been in contact with those folks as well. So my thought is that they'll end up probably going to either of the two. There's no they're just, to me, again, Susan, I don't, this is my feeling that if there was to be a PAC 2.0, then Stanford would have been at the leading the group to get the schools that they wanted in there,
Hmm.
and I don't see that happening. And if that's the case, well then, why are they talking to the ACC?
Right. And another thing too that a lot of people, well, some are talking about it, but the timing of the whole thing. I mean, for any team to leave the Mountain West or the AAC to join the PAC 2.0, as you
Yeah,
call it, there's a huge buyout they have to pay. And
yeah,
you think that conference is going to get a large media deal?
no,
I don't. Matter of fact, it may not be much better than what they have now. So to me, it wouldn't make a lot of sense for some of these teams. The only way it would make sense in my mind is they just want to hitch their wagon to a Stanford and a Cal and be
well,
part of that club. But
it's
like
either
you
that.
said,
Mhm,
like you said, if Stanford and Cal are not on board with doing that, then it's all
mhm.
a moot point anyway.
Well, I mean, the only reason that you would do it, and it's I would want to find. There's no way this is gonna. They'd be an autonomy 5 conference for 1 more year.
Right.
Okay, so, or Power 5, however you want to call it. The fact of the matter is, well, Power 4, because well,
Right.
anyway, could be Power 5. At the end of the day, that that vote would come up later in 2020, for 2026 and beyond. So you may just be jumping into a conference that thinking you're going to get a Power 5 designation, only to find out in a year and a half, or by the time you get into the conference, it's not that. So you've basically jumped for no apparent reason. And I just don't see. I would, if it were me and I was in the mountain, or if I were in the American, I just keep my head down and keep building and doing the best I can, because there's going to be spots open, down the road
Hmm.
in both the ACC and probably the Big 12 and other places, where it's not going to be. I'm not going to be taking such a gamble.
Right. Yep. Makes sense to me. I'm like you. I think they're better off just standing pat and trying to build on what they have,
Hmm.
and not trying to jump yet, because it's just, to me, it's too unsteady and uncertain for them to
Yeah,
make that move.
but, I mean, you'd have to. The first thing they'd have to do is they would have to trust George Kliakoff to get them a media partner,
Hmm.
um, and that didn't seem to work once, so it's probably not going to work
Right.
this time. Um, it's going to be interesting, but I wouldn't. To me, that's a dangerous game to play.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, Jim, once again, thank you for coming on, everybody. Please don't forget to go check out Jim's show, Stream On with Jim Williams, every morning at
10 a.m.
11, 10 a.m.
Hmm.
On YouTube. I'll leave a link in the show notes in the description box. Uh, he writes columns for Forbes Magazine, so you can go check that out as well. Uh, Jim, once again, thank you for your time, and
Always a pleasure.
yes, sir.
And
Look forward to doing
we have
this
to have.
again. And
We're going to have you on the show.
I'd love to.
Good,
It'd be fun to do it.
good.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. If you're listening on podcast, don't forget to leave a 5-star review if you liked what you heard here. Um, and that being said, guys, thanks again, and Q Country Roads.
Take me home.